You are tuned in to that praisey station, praise.fm, where we get our praise on. 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Momentum Shift. It is your girl, Dr. Dre, in the house tonight. I'm gonna say I'm the original Dr. Dre. You know, I know y'all don't know me because y'all know it's Dr. Dre. Y'all associating, but I am the original Dr. Dre. That's what I'm gonna say. It's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I'm the original Dr. Dre. I want to welcome you guys back to the Momentum Shift. If you're not on live, I invite you to share. I have got my classmate here on the line all the way by way of that. Well, I guess you were born in Michigan, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Pontiac, Michigan.
Yeah, he was born in where? Pontiac,
Michigan.
Oh, Lord. He was born in Pontiac, Michigan, but I met him in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which is my hometown. And I guess it was his mom's hometown, kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, he ended up back in the big BR. It really ain't big, y'all. I spent my whole life trying to find my way out of Baton Rouge because it wasn't big enough for me. However, that's where it all began. This young man, I'm going to call him a young man, he walked into my classroom at Berean Seventh-day Adventist Elementary School, where it all started for us. And I ain't going to even say how old. Well, yeah, I'm proud of my age. 54 years old. I know Rev Roger's going to be coming up the rear behind me. But like I said, for those of you who didn't have an opportunity to meet him last week, he showed up to, I think, my 10th year birthday party in the suit, y'all. This man been preaching his whole life. The show isn't about preaching tonight, though. I brought him back this week because we were talking about some wonderful things. And we grew up in the era, like I said, we was living down in rural South. Well, it's rural to some people. It was just the South to us. We didn't know some people consider that as being rural or not. However, that's we were. And we started this conversation last week because we were talking about busing, how we got caught up in the whole busing piece. So that's so good. It got gooder and gooder and gooder. So I wanted to bring him back this week so we could talk about it some more. But I want to give a shout out to Dr. Lady Rain, who makes it rain here in the Valley of the Sun. For those of you all who don't know, I am coming out of one of the suburbs of the Phoenix metro area, the home of the desert and the Valley of the Sun, y'all. It shines here. Feels like 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. Not really, it does. Y'all, we do have winter. So y'all don't come for me. Y'all people from the real states where snow and all that stuff, don't come for me. If y'all don't want me to come back for y'all, don't come for me tonight. Yes, in Phoenix, 50 degrees is actually cold. And if you've never been to the desert, I invite you to come. Don't come now, though. We don't even want to live here now. So this is it is hot. But I'm gonna be honest. If I have to choose between the dry heat and the humidity, I'm going to choose Phoenix. Yeah. Every day, all day. I do not miss humidity at all. And if you've grown up, I lived in Hurricane Alley. I've lived there the majority, I've been here 21 years. So the majority of my life was spent in humidity. I'm about to break even. I'm coming close to breaking even. And if I had to choose, I'm gonna be honest, I prefer this. The one thing I don't like about the Phoenix metro area, and I will be honest about that, the thing I hate the most about it is we don't know when summer's going to end. That's the problem here. It could start in March and it might not end until after Thanksgiving. No, and we've had 100-degree weather at Thanksgiving since I've been here. Yeah. And Dr. Lady Rain won't come on the front of this camera. Y'all have to join her in the morning. Y'all want to see her on the other side of the camera, you have to show up at praise.fm radio or praisey.fm radio at 6 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, Arizona, because we do not do daylight savings time here. Not sure. Well, I kind of know why. I kind of understand why, but I really kind of wish it'd go away everywhere, to be honest. It's confusing. So in the summertime, we're actually on the same time zone as California. So people get confused, especially Dr. Lady Rain when she goes back home to visit family. She never knows what time it is. I'm her timekeeper year round because when she's up back on the East Coast, she doesn't realize that we're on West Coast time. And so her days start for a 7:30 show. She has to start at, let me make sure, 10:30 at night to do a 7:30 p.m. show. So meant that the East Coasters, Oh yeah, that's kind of bad when you have a 6:30 in the morning show and girlfriend got to be at work. I don't know how you do that, but she holds it down some kind of way. She works 24 hours a day, y'all. I don't know. But welcome to the Momentum Shift. I'm going to invite. Let me give a couple. Sorry, didn't mean to hit my little button. So I want to say hi. Hey, Carmen. Hey, Carmen. Yes, Lord. My girl Carmen is back in the house. I hadn't seen Carmen. We're going to give a shout out to Carmen's daughter, though. She passed the bar exam and got sworn in last week. Right. It's so exciting to Sydney. I know she's Sydney here. She's also my soror too, y'all. You know, she had to come up behind the rear and do a little something a couple years ago. Tiffany Lloyd, yes, Louisiana is representing in the house. Hi, Tiffany. Hi, Mary. Let me see. You guys, come on. Hi, Carol. New York is in the house. That's what I'm talking about. I'm so excited for the East Coasters that's popping in. Carmen is actually an East Coaster. That's the Maryland chick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's been living out here for a while. So, you know, we Phoenix is full of transplants from other places. You know, all folks from the cold places come out here to the heat, but we all hate the summertime. But I want to welcome you guys in. Keep sharing. We continue, more and more people will be coming in. If you would like to do your own show, or you think, oh, Shalonda must be on here because somebody commented responding to Shalonda. I'm sorry, guys. I am not on my phone tonight. And because I'm not on my phone, oh, hey, Shalonda. Hi, Charlotte. I don't know if I said hi to you. If I don't say hi to you, please comment. We're going to give you your shout outs. It's such an awesome experience to have. Oh, Lord. Dr. Rain, all in my show. See, she in the comments, but won't come on the camera. See that? Isn't that how folks do? They want to comment on, she said she only claimed Maryland. Oh, because of the crap. Carmen cut up tonight. It's, you know what? When you meet somebody here in the Phoenix metro area that's our age and they from here, they're famous. I'm going to be honest. Now more and more people, because I've been here a long time, I'm starting to meet more and more people that are actually born and raised Phoenix. But most of the people you meet are, I'm being honest, they are from somewhere else. People move here for all different kinds of reasons. Some of them, we came here by way of the Air Force. So yes, but welcome to the Momentum Shift. I got Pastor Roger, Rev Roger here in the house. Can you recap a little bit on how we got to this? Because we were talking about, I think it kind of came up when we were talking about busing, how we got caught up in that whole busing experience.
Yeah.
And what that did was it kind of made us realize, for those of us who had gone to community schools and we had been involved primarily with our family of origin and people in our community and people who look like us and that kind of those things. How did that affect you, impact you and your family and your thoughts about yourself and others? Can you share a little bit just on that, and so we can move forward to what you're doing now and how you see faith, the facts, and how that's impacting. You said you had a term last week that I can't remember. I couldn't remember for the life of me. I think you called it was a political statement about sort of like with the evangelical world and social justice and all of those things. So how do you tie that together?
Well, I'm trying my best too to sew it back together where we were last week. I know we were talking about our childhood growing up in the East Baton Rouge Parish school systems. And you know, when you and I met in the 5th grade in elementary school at Berean Seventh-day Adventist, that's an independent, or what we would call then a private school, we had excellence in education and our faith wedded together. Then a couple of years after that, desegregation really began to take hold in the East Baton Rouge Parish school system. And I think we were talking about how the desegregation efforts were of course found their origins in the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education decision. And many southern states were very slow to follow the law. The overturning of the 1896 Plessy versus Ferguson decision, that segregation basically was constitutional, separate but equal. And the social life available to us at that time, and not what we're talking now is the early 80s, was not prepared properly for us to come into an integrated space, a diverse space, but not an integrated space. And what I mean is there were still attitudes and understandings in our white brothers and sisters' minds about us that were, still racist, just to speak plainly about it. The coming out of Berean, where the teachers, Miss Artist, Miss Paraway, just to name a few, and we had a woman for principal at the time, and we were nurtured as their children. They treated us like their children. You remember that, and they loved on us as they educated us. I moved from that to a scene where I was tolerated. It was tacit acceptance. And my junior high school years, my high school years, I see how people reminisce and talk about. I haven't been to one class reunion since graduating in 6. I haven't been to one class reunion because there just wasn't any real camaraderie. There wasn't any connectivity. You were brought in because the law said you're supposed to be there. I remember my mother, though, looking forward to me being in a school like Central High, where I went, because she felt like I was going to be getting the education that the white kids were getting. I'm not going to be left out with secondhand this and third-hand this that I might have got in a neighborhood school, which at the time, Scotlandville would have been the neighborhood school, but it too had been transformed during that period of time and became a magnet school. But I remember as a little child, some of my neighbors going to Scotlandville High School, and the place had really gotten bad. The children were undisciplined. I don't know what the situation was as far as reasons or whatever. I was a small kid, but I remember just hearing bad stories about everything going bad at Scotlandville High. I remember hearing a story where they took a teacher and put him in a barrel and rolled him around the playground outside. It had really gotten bad over there. And of course, these images, of course, connect to white folks as confirmations of something about us that's less than human. They already have this dehumanizing view of us. So those kind of images came to play. So here we are being plucked up out of our urban origins and brought into white neighborhoods. I didn't tell this story last time, but as a 9th grader, the first year in the high school, I tried out for the 9th grade baseball team. I was the only black to make it. And I remember sitting in the locker room, dressing and getting ready, and by myself, sitting in the locker room by myself. No one talking to me, no one, sharing time with me. And really what I learned eventually is that when I got, when I made the cut and made the team, they were hoping for one of their friends to make the team. Now, these were kids that not only went to school together, they lived in the same neighborhoods together. They played in Little League together. They were in kindergarten together. You see what I'm saying? They came up together in their neighborhood schools. And so now we were ushered in. All of that to say, the social world was not prepared for kids like us to enter into this idea of integration, which in my experience, I never thought integration was there. I just got moved into a diverse setting, and it began to germinate in my head an understanding, I guess, of what my mission would be. Of course, at that time, I didn't know for sure God would call me to preach, even though I had people saying they saw that in my life since a little boy. You just kind of alluded to that, but those issues were impactful. Obviously, they were impactful on my life, and it gave me a vision of God, of how we ought to be going through that juxtaposed situation where we were together but divided, and my skin color and where I was from dictated how I was treated, how I was talked to, how I was looked upon. So certainly I remember us talking about that last week, and it was impactful, and it has been impactful in shaping my understanding of the gospel. Now, the gospel is the gospel wherever you go. It's the same. What I sometimes, Dr. Drea, what I struggle with is when people say there is the gospel and then there's the social gospel, which for me, the social gospel is the gospel. In fact, the gospel is the gospel because it's social. It is God making contact with a fallen humanity. It is about relationships. It is about his relationship with us. That's where the crux and the core of the gospel starts, of us repenting of our sins and coming to Jesus Christ as our Savior and as our Lord. And if I may draw up a picture, a verbal picture of it, him grabbing our hand and grabbing the hand of God and bringing us together and uniting fallen humanity now with restored humanity, a new creaturehood in Christ, to be at one with God. And I saw that as the design for how we ought to be in the world with each other on the horizontal experiences of life. We connected with God on the vertical, but now that vision for me spread out to the horizontal of how we ought to be. So God's relationship with us through Jesus and the blood shed became the model for the way I saw the gospel moving among us in our everyday life. Because while we never will see a U-Haul follow a hearse, we will never carry any of our materials with us to heaven, one thing we will carry to heaven with us, it's our relationships. It's our relationships. And my pastor, the Reverend Dr. Jesse B. Bilberry, really should be credited with making sure that I knew this, and that is Jesus only gave one mark of identity of how others in the world will know we belong to the Lord. And he went to John 13, 34 and 35 and picked up that word where it says, "A new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another as I have loved you. By this shall all men know that you are my disciples, by the love you have one to another." And I'll say this last, and I won't overtake and talk too much, but
you're fine.
When we talk about the word love, that's where we run into a lot of problems right now. And I think Dr. Cornel West put it well when he said, love, erase that. He said, justice is what love looks like in public. If you want to know what love looks like in public, it is when justice has been established. And just dealings and actions toward each other in our interpersonal relationships. And yes, systems and structures being held accountable to be just in the way that they are in charge of the citizenry as far as being governed, how they distribute opportunities, resources, so forth and so on. All of this, I believe, it will be held accountable. They will be held accountable by God in the way we've been treated, whether justly or whether unjustly. So it helps My past helped me to have that shape of God as I go forward in ministry.
And I think that's a powerful statement that you just made, because oftentimes the way that we preach the gospel, or the understanding some of us have of the gospel, means that you pretend like nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
And we're this whole big melting pot. We hear that all the time. However, I think last week we kind of talked about the difference between assimilation and acculturation and all the other rations that you want to put in there.
Yes.
I mean, I'm a social worker by trade, so I learned a lot of this. I learned in my graduate work, in particular, I took a class that I found probably one of the most impactful classes. There's two. You go into your graduate work, and probably in the undergraduate work also, because I didn't do social work as a graduate. I did it for my master's program. And one of the first classes you take as a core class is called Human Behavior in the Social Environment.
Okay.
And that's the class where they talk about us as humans and how we engage socially with one another. So it's sort of like the biology, the sociology, the physiology. It's all of it kind of mixed together, and not physiological stuff in the sense that you learn anatomy and physiology, not that way. But I'm talking about how we come together physically, how we come together socially, and how our family of origin and all of those things impact who we are as people, how we engage with one another, our thoughts, all of that. That's what you start off with.
Yeah.
And talks about High Choice. Choice is preparing. She's out in Austin. They're preparing for Juneteenth activities with her family. But it talked about all of that. And the next class that I would probably say, and it's interesting because I'll never forget this professor. He's actually Nigerian. He taught at LSU for many years though, but I met him at Valdosta State University back in the mid-90s. Mm-hmm. And the class that he taught was from poor laws to the welfare state. Mm-hmm. And it talks about the church as the first social service agency.
Yeah.
And I think that that's part of what I think a lot of our culture has kind of moved away from. Because when we were doing community churches, hi Ronnie, when our churches were kind of our communities, where there were people who looked like us, people who we identified with, and I'm not talking about excluding people. So for anyone who hears this discussion, that is not what this discussion is about. As a matter of fact, on the contrary, what we're talking about is our diversity, bringing the diversity that we have and celebrating that to the table, because it's really more of an engagement than it is about separating. Mm-hmm. And the poor laws to the welfare state says a lot about how this all started back in Europe, how it started in England. From church being the provider of welfare and taking care of people in their communities, making sure that there was food to eat, making sure that everyone's needs were met, to what has become the thought process about what social services and welfare is actually all about. Right. And the disconnect. And it happened in every part. If you notice, where the church was doing everything, we've separated church and state. We've separated church and from school. We've taken the spiritual life out of everything. Mm-hmm. We're expecting God to manifest in an area where he's not welcome. Mm-hmm. And it's really because of what we've done not just from a political standpoint, but I think the church really has created so much of influence in our social thoughts, and based on what's right, what's wrong. It's either black or white.
Can I interject something there? Because I don't want to forget when you say, because that's an excellent point you bring it up. That the church has abdicated its responsibilities in many ways, so that when we talk about major issues, we refer to them as political issues, because we have, as the church, abdicated it to the politician, to the elected official. And I have been accused at times by people, well, he was preaching politics this Sunday. I heard you, Rev. You were a little political today. It wasn't political. It was social justice. It was about God's justice addressing issues that the church just have stepped back from. And I think this is the season where hopefully houses of worship, men and women of faith, will begin to recognize, wait a minute, we're putting too much on the politician's table and plate. And what we need to do is begin to take our own responsibility in these issues. For instance, when we talk about our children, the welfare of our children, their after-school activities and things like this, these are issues the church ought to be addressing and be out in front of. Yeah, now, yes, social justice issues, while they're not political issues, they do have there is a political response that is necessary, but they are not political in nature. And so therefore, we must realize that as the church, other expressions of faith, we have to be out in front, taking command of these issues from a grassroots level, and then let the politicians do the only part that they are capable of doing.
It's legislating.
Yeah.
And that's true. And when we come back, because it's time to break, when we come back, I'd like to unpack a little bit of that, because that's the reason why I brought up the whole piece about from the poor laws to the welfare state, because the average person probably does not even know or remember a lot of social services and whatnot as we know them now, that are political talking points actually came out of the New Deal.
Yeah.
And having an understanding of how we got to that in the first place and who it originally was set up to help will shift our thinking. Yeah. And a lot of it has to do with ignorance towards history, not ignorance in the sense that people are stupid. It's just not having a knowledge of where things come from. And so with that note, I'm going to ask that you guys stick around for the second piece, because now it's time to break and we have to take a break so we can pay for this show. So if you want to be a participant in that, you too can have an advertisement here right now. Just don't leave. I'm telling y'all, like they used to say when we were growing up, don't touch that dial. I know there's people on here old enough to remember, don't touch that dial.
Right.
So so don't leave, because this is getting good, y'all. Good job.
Have you ever wanted to host your own inspirational radio show? Have you been called to inspire and spread God's word? Please contact Alicia Rain for more info.
Are you the next great independent artist, but you're looking for a distribution opportunity? Well, sign with us at Praise.fm Music Distribution. Yes, the 2021 Stellar Award nominated Praise.fm can handle it all. We understand the narrow road leading to getting your music heard at the right time at the right place can be tough. So send your music and video files to fmpraise@gmail.com. That's fmprayz@gmail.com. Praise.fm Music Distribution, affiliated with Sony Music and the Orchard Distributors.
You choose to abide in your treasured I could be on top of the world again. Just hold on to his unchanging hand. Be a part of the plan that he laid out. Live life up till it fade out. Fading, fading, fading away. Fading, fading, fading away.
Give me 5 words with a meaning. Over 10,000 tongues when it sound like screaming. Scenes from the nightlife, whole team glimmering the keys. Both room and a whip for the evening. Midnight air when I breathed in. Feel the devil's breath on my neck like he leaned in. Got her too high, hit a tailspin. Want nobody in the pit with me when I fell in. Caught a L then, jailed in.
Hey, Praise family, meet Service Disabled Navy veteran Howard Martell. He's a Christian, family man, and business owner of Howard Superstore. Howard, tell us more about the store.
Some of our top sellers include Gen Mink. It's 100% pure mink oil and provides exactly what your skin needs. Gen Java Gourmet Arabica CBD coffee with an unbelievably good taste. Gen Ease Roll-On Pain Relief. Gen Health, which supports a healthy immune system. Ultimate Keto Ultimate Body Formula. Gen Pet Max Total Pet Health for cats and dogs. And Gen Ties Clean Hands. We're also super enthused to bring Gen Energy to the consumers. This is a power factor correction unit installed in your home or business, and it absolutely helps reduce high energy bills from power companies.
Learn more about these amazing products. Visit howardsuperstore.com. That's howardsuperstore.com.
There is an exciting new book out named Transition by author Crystal Sauls. This book talks about her changes from childhood to adulthood and other things that happened in her life. This book is also a testament that anyone can turn a negative life into a great life. Transition has recently become a bestseller on Amazon. You will find exciting and realistic reviews about this best-selling book. So, visit thetransitionbook.com and order your autographed copy of Transition today.
Shop Soulful Touch Roses for your personally designed rose at soulfultouchgifts.etsy.com.
Unique Sounds Music Group presents a music fest on Carnival Freedom, January 26th through the 30th, 2023. Sailing from Orlando, Florida to Nassau and Princess Cay, Bahamas. Reserve your spot today with just $25 by contacting booking at uniquesounds.com.
Attention! Music Fest has opened its doors of opportunity for a short period of time to musical talents to perform. For more information about participating in the Music Fest shows, please contact Let's Connect at A2ZChristlife.com or www.praise.fm.
Welcome back to the Momentum Shifters. I am so excited that you guys decided to stick around and hear more about what God is doing. We are back. Come on back in. You guys keep sharing. We're having a powerful discussion. We're talking about history and our thoughts and how the role of the church, what used to be the role of the church and was actually the primary responsibilities of the church, because the church were the social workers, the church were the therapists, the church were the parents, the church was the family, the church actually our communities, and how we can integrate how we used to do things, our thoughts, and how we can bring that back full circle, especially in our culture. And this is not just about African-American culture. So I'm gonna make sure I make this clear, because I want to remind people that this is not a show about racism necessarily. However, racism is a valid component of what we deal with in everyday life. Is it the only component? No. But to pretend that it doesn't exist we would be remiss in doing that as well. So I welcome back Reverend Roger Williams by way of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. How I got to know him. He was born in Pontiac, Michigan. I met him in Baton Rouge, and he is now pastoring First Baptist Church. Let me make sure I got that right. First Baptist Church of Glen Clove. And that's on Long Island, New York, which is a long way away from home for someone who
It sure is.
And just because my girlfriend, which is time to have Ronnie back on. Ronnie, I need you back, girl. I need you back. So I don't care what you got going on next week. I'm gonna need to see you. So we gotta figure this out. But Ronnie is actually Hispanic. She's our Hispanic sister who happens to be a PK. And we talk about the same stuff. We have shared experience. As a matter of fact, she'd be a great person to have on your show. One you host, because she could actually bring some real good insight, because this chick is from Arizona, born and raised. Mm-hmm. Yes, born and raised. And she is a school teacher by trade, educated, all of that. Went to teach school in Mississippi. Now, what made her decide to do that, I have no idea, because I grew up in Baton Rouge and there's no way I would have gone to teach school in Mississippi. But she did, and she learned quite a bit being this. And this was before Mexicans lived all over the United States. Because when I was growing up as a kid, the only time I ever saw people of Hispanic heritage was during migrant farm working.
Okay.
We just didn't see.
Yeah.
You know, down in the South where we grew up, you just didn't see people of Hispanic culture. That is the only time. And I don't know if you ever saw it, to be honest. I don't remember seeing a whole lot of it in Baton Rouge. I'm just going to be honest. I saw more of it when I moved to South Georgia.
Yeah, and then the diversity that I see now, I never saw it until I moved here. Yeah.
See, and so people who didn't grow up, she says, Hurricane Katrina Relief Fund. I was the only Mexican in Mississippi and Alabama. She said she was the only one.
I remember that.
Okay.
Yeah,
I do remember that now that you mentioned Ronnie. And you guys, let's continue to keep Ronnie in prayer, because yes, that old devil think he's going to hold her back, but he's a lie. She is healed, free, and delivered, and walking in her purpose. And we're going to make sure that the devil does not win. He does not have the last say. So, Reverend Roger, having said that, can you? We were talking about how I mentioned about the poor laws to the welfare state, and then right before the break, I also mentioned about the New Deal that during FDR. Why it came about, how it even expanded to where it is, because the average American may or may not even know how it even came about. Because if you listen to the political climate and how they talk about food stamps and they talk about this, that, and the other, and welfare payments, there's a lot of people who don't even understand that there's no way that you could possibly make any money off welfare.
Yeah.
They don't make any money, so to speak, not in the way that people think people are making money. Yeah. I people that are making $100 and some a month. Even after you have so many children, you don't get paid. All the things, the myths that are out there, it does not. And all of our tax money is not going towards welfare. It's probably 1% of the whole deficit of our taxes that even pays for welfare, period.
Yeah.
And if you live in military housing, such as myself, who lived there for 7.5 years on Moody Air Force Base, guess what? Hi, Pastor Bell. She's my East Coaster as well. You were living in the project if you lived in base housing. Mm-hmm. But we're not going to have that discussion either, because it's subsidized housing. But it's different, I guess, if you're a military family. But our thoughts, we're just bringing some awareness here. So, Rev Roger, can you share a little bit about how the transition from busing to New York, and you being a political preacher, and whatever else people have thought about you. How did you get to be so involved with community social action and community policing and all of that? How did we get to where you are now?
Well, and to answer that question, obviously, and I kind of sort of talked about this before without saying this out loud, and that is, it's all about sources. It's all about sources. If any researcher will know, when you come up with a body of information, a body of work, you want to study the sources from which that information came. For me, very early on in my ministry, when I started out at 19, 20 years old, I was exposed to some of the great progressive minds in the faith, not just pastors, but freedom fighters who were themselves seeing the ideal of a spiritual life whereby they were dealing with the whole person, which I remember in the late 80s, we talked about people becoming enthralled with the full gospel. And I remember hearing some of those sources that I'm referring to talk about the fact that we don't need a full gospel, we need a whole gospel. And those sources, when they talked about a whole gospel, they were talking about meeting the needs of the total, the needs of the total person. One of those sources, the Reverend Dr. Gardner Calvin Taylor, and many of my members and people who know me will know I've talked about him much. He is a Louisianian himself. He graduated from Leland College in Baker, Louisiana, went on to Oberlin in Ohio, pastored his first church up there, and then came back to Louisiana to pastor the Mount Zion Baptist Church, and I believe before that a church in New Orleans, before moving to Brooklyn, New York, and pastored there for 42 years. He led that congregation to a 121-bed nursing home, a full accredited elementary school, which his first wife, died tragically in a accident. But when she was alive, she led and was the principal of this fully accredited elementary school right out of Concord Church, a 121-bed nursing home, an elementary school. So seeing that helped me to broaden my understanding that, as you and I were talking earlier, this is the way that we nurture our communities. We meet the whole person's needs, educationally, in this sense, medically. They also had a fully professionally run credit union where people could come and get loans and on lower interest, because these were the issues that African Americans were facing in the borough of Brooklyn, where they were not able to borrow as they needed to and establish themselves, and education for their children. The public school systems were becoming so corroded with problems. And then, of course, the care, which is, I think you know and I know, one of the struggles we have seen in communities of color is getting proper care, getting proper health care. So they were dealing with these issues in the 60s and 70s at the Concord Church, and many other minds that served as sources for me informed me in that way. So when I came to New York in 1999 to begin my work here as a pastor, I was already equipped with a mind that my work was not just in the pulpit on Sunday morning. My work had to be in the community. I had to be a voice and eyes and a mind in the public square, where my people negotiate daily, where they go buy, where they go sell, where they go to get healing from their doctors, where they go to look for leadership from their political people that they've elected to office. I knew that I had to bring the moral vision of the kingdom to the world where we live in. That's how I understand it, Dr. Dre. Jesus said something when he taught them to pray. He taught his disciples to pray. He said, when you pray, this is how you pray. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Watch this. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So I had this vision, this mind that in my preaching and teaching, I'm educating and equipping my people to be a part of bringing a slice of the kingdom to the world where we live as a demonstration of what the kingdom will look like in its ultimacy. The world is not the kingdom. America is not the kingdom. There's a Christian nationalist, white nationalist movement that believe America is the kingdom, but the kingdom transcends America, transcends this dispensation that we live in. And our job is to use the world in which we've been given, the stage that we've been given, to bring a slice of heaven, a slice of the kingdom to the world, whereby it is demonstrated. And you have to meet the evils and you have to meet the sins and engage them in doing so. So there's a risk involved, there is sacrifice involved, there is pushback involved, but you have, that's bearing the cross though. You know, Jesus said, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. That is, we have to be cross-bearing creatures where we are sounding the alarm of the entrance of the kingdom through our example, through our demonstration. So that demonstration will witness to others of what the kingdom will look like in its ultimacy. So that's the mindset that brought me to where I am in my ministry.
And I think that's a power. As you were talking about that, I began to think about the work that Jesus did, even before the cross. Part. I mean, you know, a lot of us would say, well, Jesus wasn't involved in politics. Right. My question is, did you read the books?
Yeah.
Because no, he didn't run for office. He didn't declare that he was this or he was that. He did the work though. Yeah. He challenged the thinking of those who were religious.
Yeah.
And the difference between us before Christ is about religion. Yeah. He didn't come to dispel the church. He came to be the church. Like what you're talking about. He demonstrated the love of God. Mm-hmm. He was the person, like you said earlier, the one that held one hand of God and held the other hand of man and integrated.
Yes.
We've been talking about integration. What does that really look like? Because it doesn't mean that I disappear. Mm-hmm. Just doesn't mean you disappear.
Right.
God is all different for a reason.
Right.
But that thought process that it should be just us and only our way. You know, it's interesting because even within our own culture, we have to be careful because division, the enemy always divides because division is always about conquering. That's how you conquer, you divide.
Yeah.
But I'll say what I believe division is not. Division, it does not mean 1 plus, you still have one and you add another. One isn't getting rid of the other one.
Right.
But when we add me, it plus you creates another one.
Yeah.
That's God doesn't disrespect his own laws that he created.
Right.
He follows his own pattern.
Right.
And the challenge I believe that the church is having in general, just Christianity period, is I think what we're calling addition is actually subtraction. Mm-hmm. And I can't be me. I'm not talking about sinful me. Don't get me wrong. That's not what we're talking about. Yeah. But who God made me to be and be excited about who I am. And you can be excited about who you are. And when we come together, our togetherness will create more people that are excited about who they are in Christ.
Yeah.
And when those people come together, it creates even more people who are excited. But it doesn't mean that I have to pretend I don't exist.
Yeah.
Or the things that make me me.
Yeah.
I can't celebrate that anymore in order for me to be a part of God's kingdom.
Yeah. Yeah.
The things that when he met the woman at the well, that's an interesting story to me, because obviously that wasn't even somebody he should have paid any attention to according to the law.
Right.
But yet he tells this woman everything about her. Mm-hmm. And he does it in a spirit of love to the point where she's like, come see a man who told me everything there was to know about me. And he shouldn't be talking to me, took the time for me in spite of me.
Right.
I wonder what would happen if we as the church would learn to do that. How much more could we spread the gospel?
Yeah.
If we find the time.
Yeah.
Love people in spite of people.
Right. Yeah. You know, and coming to what you're saying now, I want to, if you don't mind, I want to backtrack a couple of steps. It is true that Jesus never ran for political office. You had the Roman Senate, which he would have known about, and I'm pretty sure he may have known some of the members of the Roman Senate. Never mentioned any of their names. But what people must understand is this, that when Jesus talked about the kingdom, his kingdom and his vision of it had political implications, right? And it had to, because when we look at it in its historical setting, Jesus was crucified, he was executed for the reason of insurrection. He was a bandit, or the English translation of the word we get is robber, but not somebody going in a 7-Eleven and stealing $30 out of the cash register. Bandits or insurrectionists were associated with thoughts and actions and words that led to the disturbance of the Pax Romana, or the peace of Rome. So when Jesus was sentenced to be crucified, he was sentenced because they thought what he said and what he did was a threat to the order of things according to Roman government. Jews could not sentence anyone to crucifixion. Only Romans could do that. Mm-hmm. So if the implication here is that if they found it necessary to crucify a peasant Galilean, a man out of Bethlehem who came from this little small hamlet of Bethlehem where there are only 100 families at the most there, they crucified him not because of what he thought about God. They crucified him because they thought his idea of the kingdom was a threat to the order of things according to the Roman government. So it had political implications. And this is the thing that we have to understand about the ministry of Jesus, that his ministry wasn't just something celestial or ethereal or levitating off the ground. It was something that was the rubber meeting the road, and it truly tested the empire and its existence of how it governed its citizens. And Jesus challenged that. He said, listen, blessed are the poor, for yours is the kingdom. That wasn't the way it was in Rome. It was the opulent. It was the aristocracy who ran the Roman Empire, who ran Roman culture, who lorded over their people. Jesus said, you're not like them. You don't lord it over each other. The greatest among you is the one who serves, you know? So it had its implications on the existing powers known as the Roman Empire, and people need to remember that when they're dealing with the gospel and dealing with the truth of Jesus' ministry.
That's very powerful. Which brings, let's bring it all together. Okay. You know, we talked about, you know, as we're closing for tonight, because it's time to go. What an impactful discussion. We've talked about some of our history and how history is repeating itself. In essence, that's what we're talking about the repetition of history. We were taught about every 20 years, you see a repeat of history. And, you know, those of us who are around probably remember, why can't we just all get along? You know, there's been seasons. We had the Rodney King movement. We've had different things happen in increments over the years. And before our time, you know, we had the civil rights movement, you know, that our parents lived in. When they did the sit-ins and they did different things. So yes, and the church was involved in that.
Yeah.
Even then, every season, every step, the church had some involvement. So I wanted to bring all this back because I think in our modern thinking, because we're not talking about history in the way that we learned it when we were kids.
Yeah.
Because now everything has become the melting pot. And a melting pot means that when you melt a whole bunch of things together, that means everything becomes this one thing and you can't tell what the ingredients were anymore. Of that is that if you over melt a certain group of people or a certain group of ideas or a certain group of thoughts or a certain culture, it gets lost.
Yeah.
That's why we hear about extinction. But there was value that those group of people brought. There are some things that we do today that we would not do today or have today if it wasn't for that culture that's now extinct.
Yeah.
So all we're talking about is adding value, not taking away.
Yeah.
Being careful that how we think you do addition doesn't turn out to be division.
Right.
And that's what we're talking about. So Reverend Williams, I'm so excited that you came and shared. As we get closer to election season, I'd like for you to come back because that's when it's really good. Because of the fact that you're well versed in this area, we want to be able. Now, you may not be able to do it in your pulpit every Sunday, but that mean that there are not other forums in which we can, because we're about educating people and telling people what the real issues are. And this has nothing to do with whether you're liberal or whether you're conservative. That's not what we're talking about. We're not trying to sway anybody's votes or any of that. We just want to bring information so that we need to read.
Yeah.
We really
we do. Yeah, we need to pay attention.
Reading again. So we read, so we can have an understanding and listening, because wisdom, when the word talks about we perish for a lack of knowledge, it's not just about quoting scripture.
Yeah.
So with that, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for the momentum shifters that hang out with us from the East Coast. I know it's late, and you guys continue to support Crazy.fm radio, where the praise is on fire and we have to stay inside, won't burn. We are here in Phoenix and it's hot. So God bless everyone. You guys keep following my show every Tuesday night here at 7:30. If you know someone that would be a perfect guest, please feel free to hit me up. Let me know who I can bring on the show so we can continue to grow together.
Yes.
I want to say thank you, Reverend Roger, and thank you,
Dr. Drea. Thank you. The original Dr. Dre.
Oh, yeah, I'm the original one. I know y'all don't see that, but I'm the original Dr. I might not have no beats, but I'm the original.
You all right.
So good night, everybody. Love you guys and take care.
All right. Blessings.
Good night.
You are tuned in to that praise station, Praise.fm, where we get our praise on,